Hey, everybody, and welcome to another live episode of The Grid. My name is Scott Kelby, moving my mic there by accident, and we are very fortunate today to be joined by the one and only Mr. Bryan O'Neil Hughes. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
This is not your first time on The Grid?
Nope.
You know, it was funny. I was looking up for a picture today to share on Facebook of Bryan, and I remember that Bryan was here for an episode that we did, and I saw the graphic. It was called "Grill the Product Manager," because at the time you were like principal product manager for Photoshop.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big job, by the way.
Yeah.
That was cool, right?
I didn't know what I was in for that visit. You
Yeah.
did grill me for a
It
good
was
hour.
good, though. You know what? I got a whole new respect for him because, like, you were so calm and cool about everything. Like, we were throwing all kinds of stuff. Like, what about this? And what about that? And you handled everything with such a plum that you just like, I just want to hug him. It was like he handled it like such a boss. It was really, really great. But today we're here talking about mobile apps. And so, of course, with this audience, we want to talk about Lightroom Mobile, and we are. We're going to talk about Lightroom Mobile. In fact, we're going to start with some Lightroom Mobile stuff, but I want you guys to see some of the other stuff they're doing. Now, for Kelby One members, we did a private webcast today. That was awesome. It was awesome. We had so many people. Like, we almost had 1,000 people just on the chat. It was
great.
crazy. We had the best questions. People were so engaged. What was cool about it was during the show, people were downloading apps, trying them and going, this is awesome. This is great. So we're going to share some of that stuff with you today on the grid. So thanks for everybody, all the Kelby One members who joined that webcast today. And that was cool of you to do that.
It was great. I really enjoyed it.
You brought all kinds of toys too, right?
I've got an iPad Pro. I've got a phone. I've got a laptop. I got all sorts of stuff here.
All right. And we also have our first question, right, from Lyle. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. Now, can I tell you something before I ask this question? You have to realize this. So Bryan is an Adobe employee. Bryan, of course, cannot speak to software that is not released. It's not just Bryan. It's not just Adobe. Every company that makes software or hardware are not going to talk about stuff, especially software, until the day it's released. Now, every once in a while, you guys will sneak peek something, but to do that, it takes like all kinds of like meetings and levels of stuff, and we're going to sneak peek this one thing. So if you're asking him questions like I'm about to ask from Lyle here, I imagine what Bryan's going to say is, I really can't say. But I want to ask the question anyway. The real Lyle asks, ask Bryan what performance improvements are planned for Lightroom, particularly on the import front.
Right. So, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. We're a big company. I can't speak to the future.
You're a public company.
We're a public company. There are a number of reasons I can't speak to it. But what we can do is we can listen. And we've got a really good history of listening. And that's where a lot of the great ideas of these apps come from. That's where a lot of the product feedback comes from. I used to have a list every time I'd come up here and sit down with you. I'd return with a multi-page list that would drive features in Photoshop, because it wasn't just you. It was tens of thousands of people that were members and that watched your shows and whatnot. So yeah, it's probably a little frustrating that I can't tell you when such and such is going to happen. But what I can do is I can make sure that the right people back at Adobe hear about this stuff, and that helps prioritize it. And you better believe, with mobile especially, that this stuff is driven by the feedback from the users.
And you guys are coming out with so many improvements and enhancements in mobile so fast.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable. Hey, we'll speak to Lyle on this one note. So Lyle, just so you know, like I was just at Adobe like 10 days ago, 8 days ago. I met with the product managers. I met with Tom Hogarty. I met with everybody. When I'm out there, I really have one mantra, and it's one thing. I don't have a bunch of features in Lightroom that I really want. Lightroom has become a really mature product. I used to have a laundry list of stuff, and every year it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. All I ever ask for, my only thing in Lightroom, is just one thing: faster thumbnails. Just want them to be fast. I go, I don't care if you do anything else. I don't care if the next major Lightroom has nothing in it but faster loading thumbnails, faster previews. I don't care about anything else. They're so sick of hearing me say that. That's all I say. I'm a one-trick pony at Adobe. Make it faster, 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 faster. Faster importing, faster previews. I don't even ask for anything else. Now, there are things I could probably want or I mentioned here and there off the cuff, but my thing is that. So Lyle, I don't want you to think for 1 minute that we're sitting on our laurels telling the Lightroom team that I've said it to death to them. and they're aware of it, and I will just leave it at that.
And just to speak generally, because I was a Photoshop product manager for about a decade, and that's obviously a product that's been around for a long time.
It has.
Over a quarter century now. A lot of different people want it to do a lot of different things. There's sort of the things that you need to do, operating system shifts and bug fixes and stuff like that. There's the stuff that you want to do, like put in all this hot new technology. And then there's stuff that you just know is always going to be a win. And performance improvements definitely fall under that. And you saw Lightroom on the desktop do a lot of stuff through the GPU. These mobile apps take full advantage of the GPU.
Yeah, they do.
We care about performance. I can tell you firsthand, I was a user before I came to Adobe 16 years ago, and I'm a user of our products now. So if you care about performance and you care about slowdowns, you better believe that we do as well.
And they do. And you know what? It's interesting because every time I go to Adobe and I'll sit with Tom or sit with Shard and we talk about it, you think, you know what? Just forget everything and work on the thing that I want. And you realize some of the depths of it's always enlightening and frustrating at the same time, because I realize what a position Adobe's in sometimes. It's like they know they want it faster. You think the Lightroom team doesn't want it faster? But there's all these things, like when I go, well, can't you just do this? And they give you the reasons why, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. But we never hear that side, right? And so it is like I go into Adobe and I got guns shooting and I got torches and I'm going to torch the place. Then you meet with the product managers and you hear and you're like, okay, well, we'll be patient, because you know what? Lightroom gets better and better and better, and it always will. And we're going to look at some of the Lightroom mobile stuff. A couple just comments here. Brian, this is Anonymous 8966. Brian, thank you for everything that you've been sharing. So Anonymous had to be one of our people in the last one, because it was so good. If you're a Kelby One member and you missed it, we're going to replay the whole thing on Kelby One, so you'll be able to go watch it anytime you like. So that was thank you very much, Anonymous. And Deb Usilka, hi, Deb, says, thanks for being our voice, Scott. I'm trying. I get hoarse sometimes. But that's why it was fun to grill the product manager. All right.
And I am too. I mean, I really am a user advocate. And so I might be steering this in the wrong direction initially here, but I want you guys to be critical. I want you to be critical. I want you to give us your feedback. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I'll share my contact information like I always do. But whether it's the App Store or the feedback mechanisms, we're absolutely listening. And that's, like you said, our apps keep getting better because of you guys. So you play an enormous part in that process.
I was very critical about a mobile app that I hope you're going to show, because it's for photographers, and it's called Adobe Slate. Now, when it was secretly called Project Luca, and Adobe didn't have its name on it. It was just kind of an app, and you didn't know what it was. And I was very vocally critical of Project Luca when it came out. I said, here's what I like, and here's all the things I don't like. And I had a laundry list. And then they came up with an update. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm saying in any way they did this because of me, because I wrote the blog post, and everybody else was like, hey, can you do this? Can you? So I'm not trying to say that on any way, but that app got better and better, and then when it got really, really good, it became Adobe Slate, and now it's awesome. And now it's like all the things that I used to complain about. But do you know what a short time span that happened in? Like the development cycle going from Project Luca to what is now Adobe Slate is great, and I hope you're going to show Slate today, because I think for photographers, it's absolutely wonderful. Let's ask a couple of questions here. Raging Badger asks, if I'm using 3 monitors in your computer, first, I'm very jealous. This is my monitor. This is it. You have 3? All right. If I'm using 3 monitors on my computer, why can't I assign which one is used as the second monitor for Lightroom? It seems like Lightroom just picks it randomly.
I'll need to look into that. I mean, I know that we worked hard to get multi-monitor support, but as far as defining which monitor,
it's the third one. There's not even a button for the third one.
Right.
That's what it is. It says 1 and it says 2.
I think I'm going to have to expense another monitor to test this scenario, because I obviously don't know enough about it, and I also do not have.
I want to talk to Raging Badger about their spending habits, because 3 monitors for Lightroom.
But I see that workflow. I mean, I see people who are like surrounded by monitors.
But those are video people. Video people need a lot of monitors. They're very needy. Sorry, Steve, that was not okay. But but we're photographers. If we have 2, it's like too much. Anyway, So also, Debbie Uselka just thanks to Bryan and the Adobe team for listening. Okay, so we're taking your questions. If you have questions, send them on in. And of course, we're talking Lightroom Mobile. But can we actually show Slate or show?
Sure.
There's so many things you could be showing. We had a 90-minute show that we did today. The private webcast was 90 minutes, and we saw stuff that was dropping jaws. It was amazing.
Yeah, so we'll move over to my iPad Pro.
All right. Hey, while he's doing this, I want to tell you what Slate is. It is a storytelling app, and it started as an app, and now you can do it on the desktop. But it is a photographer's storytelling app. So you're telling basically stories through photos and words. And for those of you who have followed like exposure.com, I think it's a little bit kind of like that, but it was born on mobile. It was born on mobile, and they came up with a desktop component rather than the other way around. And it's very, very nicely done.
Yeah, so I'll talk about a number of different mobile apps today. And the thing to remember with all of these mobile apps are free. All of these mobile apps run on both the phone and the iPad. A great deal of these mobile apps are also on Android. The ones that are not are on their way there. And all they use is an Adobe ID, and the Adobe ID tells the files where to go, not unlike your email or Facebook or anything else. Those files live in the cloud, so they're accessible on the web and on the mobile devices as well. If you guys can bring up my iPad, thank you. We'll take a look. We've got a whole bunch of different ones, and we can look at them whenever we like. But let's just take a quick look at Slate. This is a really cool app. This is one of those apps that has won Apple's Editor's Choice Awards, very distinctive, unique award. They don't hand a lot of those out. And they did it because this app, a lot of these apps are derived from workflows from the desktop, and this is a brand new workflow. This is something we did on mobile, like you said, Scott, and then we brought it over to the web. So the way that it works is you can either look at these stories that people have done. I understand you have one in here, my friend.
Well, I don't know if I have one in here.
You have one on our site.
Oh, wait, that was mine.
Where?
Look, right there.
Oh, is this you?
Shooting the Outback Bowl.
Well, let's look at that. So we pull this up, and the whole idea here is that we can build this immersive content very quickly and easily. Now, in this case, Scott built it, but as you can see, what happens as I'm coming through here, the text is sort of cascading, the images zoom, and what's great about this is pretty much all you have to do is plug in the images and the text, and it makes everything look great. You've got these photo trays, you've got these images that animate. It's a really nice immersive experience. It kind of just pulls you in. Let me show you what the editing experience looks like. It's all really deeply integrated with Lightroom Mobile. So if I come over here to projects, we'll see something that looks nowhere near as nice as what Scott did. But I found this old truck last year, and I've been restoring it. So I was slowly building this slate to sort of tell the story. And we're in the editing view here. So in the editing view, you see that I can add pictures, I can add captions, and I have all of these different behaviors. So this one right here is revealing the image as I scroll up. As I then move my finger to the image, you can see it's zooming in and introducing a caption. And this stuff is it's as easy as dropping in text and dropping in images, and you end up with this little URL that you can send around to people. Again, when you want to add something to it, let's say I get to the base of this, and maybe I want to add a photo. When I come in here to my photo tray, this is where it really shines because, of course, it's integrated with Creative Cloud, but it's also integrated with Lightroom Mobile. So if I come in here to these images I put in here for today, I could just drop those right in here. They always reflect the state that I left the image. So if I take this image of my son, which is black and white, had I converted that to color, the image would be color there. If I remove this and change it in Lightroom, I'm always going to have whatever the most recent version of that file is.
So this is something that I didn't realize until our webcast today. But Lightroom Mobile links to like almost all of these apps, doesn't it?
Everywhere. I really want you guys to think about Lightroom differently. I want you to think about it as the container for all of your images, because if you do sync your images to Lightroom Mobile, they will be available to you in all of the mobile apps. They will be available to you on all your different devices, and they'll even be available to you, a lot of people don't know this, on the web. You can cull them, you can flag them, you can rank them, you can even edit them with all sorts of editing power that you traditionally
Well, you
only
kind
on
of
the
have
desktop.
Lightroom's develop module.
You've got about 85%.
80% of it?
Yeah,
Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's in your phone, right? I mean, you've got about 80% of
That's
Lightroom
crazy.
develop in your phone talking to proxy files. But yeah, don't just think of Lightroom as a tool for editing. Think of it as a place where your files live.
Hey, if I can jump over, can I go to Video Control Room 1? Does anybody care?
I don't care at all.
Anybody? I know you're okay. Yes. All right. So you mentioned the Adobe Slate thing and how it moves. This is one of the things I did on Slate. Watch how as I scroll down, you see that movement. See how the actual the thing is zooming out. You can really see it. I didn't use as much on that Outback Bowl because it was football, but this is more architectural kind of stuff. But it is a beautiful way to tell your stories. The images look so big on here. I mean, look at that. The presentation of the images is really, really impactful. And so you can build it on your laptop, and it's available on desktop, and vice versa. You can do it on your iPad. You can basically author anywhere. That's a really cool thing about this. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something else. I know we're seeing some questions come in. Can you show a little bit? One of the most powerful things you guys have done is Photoshop Fix. Mm-hmm. And it is really a retouching app, right up like a portrait retouching app, but there's a lot more power hidden there, including stuff that Photoshop doesn't do to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. So
how much does it cost?
Absolutely nothing.
It's free. That's what's amazing about this stuff.
And again, all this stuff, it runs on your phone. Complete feature parity with the phone. So let's take this picture of me because people are going to retouch people. And if I were to use a picture of anyone else, I'd feel funny. So we're going to take this. I refer to this as the model of imperfection, right? This is a picture that clearly needs a lot of work. I don't want to make this a long seminar, but let's look at some of what we can do here. So we could do things like remove blemishes with the spot healing tool, right? I can zoom in here and just come in here. And this is not a dumbed down version of healing. This is healing as you know it in Photoshop.
So the same technology under it?
Yep, absolutely. So I can come in, I can take out all blemishes and whatnot. It can also work as a patch tool. So you define the source, and if I wanted to do something ridiculous like take this area right here, it actually did a decent job of cloning it out. But if I hit patch and I said, well, I want you to draw from over there, it can do that. There are also multiple levels of undo. In each operation here, I can go back several different steps. On the left-hand side of the screen, if I toggle that little button there on the far left, I'm going to see overlays of the areas that I've edited. And at the top of the screen, I can see a before and after, so we can see just how hideous I was moments ago. We'll go ahead and commit that. Everything that we do here is layers under the hood. So were I to revisit that healing section, I could go back and change any of that. It's just a layer underneath it all. We could also do things that we can't do on the desktop, at least not with a traditional tool, like skin smoothing. And so this is pretty cool. If I come in here and I start dragging my finger over my forehead, I'm smoothing the skin. But what's cool is I could wander over my eyes as well. And Fix knows the difference between detail and skin.
Did we lose the contact to the...
It's subtle. I was going through there pretty subtle. But if you look at that, the green areas are where I've applied it. And you'll notice it did not soften my eyes at all. If I do this before and after zoomed in, you'll see that we're softening things, but we're not softening my eyes, okay? So that's a great example of real forward thinking a tool in there that we don't have an explicit skin smoothing tool on the desktop. If I want to brush my teeth here, I just switch this to desaturate, and I come in here and I start scrubbing over those, right? And if I overdo it, let's say I wander over my lip like that, I just come here to restore, and I paint back in over that.
Nice.
And what's really cool about this, we'll just do a couple of other things to this. Let's give it maybe a vignette. You'll notice the vignette can be applied off-center, anywhere I drag it. I can change the shape. Of course, I can change the strength. I could even change the color. But when I pass this over to Photoshop, I have a few different options when I'm done. I could send it to Photoshop, and it will translate it into a layered masked PSD, we actually use what we call prescriptive edits, which is to say that I send it to Photoshop, and it just knows the right thing to do. So that file is going to have layers, masks, adjustment layers. It's all going to just do the right thing when it sends it over there. So I'll send that one over. I could also save it to Lightroom, and of course it would be available everywhere else. I could put it anywhere I want. I can get to it anywhere I want. And the cloud takes care of the translation.
Can you show some of the like facial features that it
Yeah.
has? Because this is really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do with this other one is we'll take a look at Photoshop's program manager, Steve Snyder, good friend of mine who is blessed. I'm gonna cancel out of this because it's a big file and I want to show you that. My good friend who said it was okay for me to use his likeness here. And I think he's a great example of what we're doing with liquefy. So I'm going to turn the device here, and you'll notice that the interface changes. That's not a minor thing. Getting the app to change and refactor when you turn the device, it's a big deal. Doing that on the iPad Pro allows me to see a portrait in the portrait orientation. So liquefy, obviously one of those things that we know and love on the desktop. If I come into liquefy in Fix here, you'll notice that it's automatically dropped points onto Steve's face. It knows where his eyes are. It knows where his nose.
So just when you open it up, it does this?
That's right, yeah. As soon as we come into liquefy, I've got the face detection on there. It's not detecting who a person is. It's segmenting their face into pieces. And so if I touch on his eye, I get unique options available just for the eye. So size, tilt, height, width. If I move to his nose, I'm going to get a totally different option, which is width. Now, if I drag on his nose, I'm warping his nose constrained to just his nose. If I move to his mouth, we've got the width of his mouth, even the expression on his face.
I mean, of course, that's very good.
I could do things like crazy things, like his chin or jawline. And of course, all of this, I could go back and reconstruct it.
Poor Steve.
Yeah, poor Steve. Let's make Steve look just fine. We can make Steve look the way he did originally. So it's a great example of really going quite a bit further, right? This is a touch-driven device. We want it to be playful and interactive. I showed you this example earlier, but I'll show the folks who are watching just because I think this is really neat. I'm going to show a very unflattering picture of myself, even less flattering than that other one.
That's impossible, Brian.
It's a hard act to follow.
I like that picture, actually.
Well, that one's okay. It's this one in the shadows that's not so good. It's
Well, we can't see you in the shadows.
Well, we will in a minute. So I come in here to liquefy, and here I was speaking at this event. The picture of myself, it sees the face, but me standing over there in the shadows, if I were to tap on that, this is where it gets weird, tap on that, and there I am with an awful expression on my face, but you'll notice that even though my head is turned, it's picked up my eyes, my nose, jaw, mouth, all of that. So this stuff really does work. And it's a great example of taking sort of future labs technology and putting it in these apps.
Very nice. Now, for you guys watching at home, I think one of the things that now, how does this impact your Lightroom workflow? You're in Lightroom.
Yep.
You take an image, bounce it over to Photoshop Fix.
Yeah, so what's great about this, all of these apps, I want to back up a little bit. When we sort of rebooted our apps, we said, you know what, they need to be free, they need to be connected to each other, they need to be connected to the web, they need to be integrated with the desktop, but you need to be able to get to your stuff. We've seen again and again where people have drawers full of old devices with all these images that live on them.
Yep.
So one of the most exciting things about these apps is when I come in here, look at the options I have to open files. I've got Creative Cloud, where I can get to anything
That's
that's
everything
on
you've
Creative
done on
Cloud.
mobile.
Anything I've ever done on mobile or on the desktop that I've put in the Creative Cloud folder, I can get to that here. If I come down to Lightroom, it's anything that I've synced on Lightroom is going to be available to me right in here. So again, these are those images that I just pulled from in Slate. Even things like Facebook, I can get to my stuff wherever it is. But Lightroom is really, for the photographers, my workflow is my raw files go into the desktop, the images that I like get flagged. Maybe I'm flagging from the road, but then I'm syncing the stuff that I want, and it's available to me anywhere I am. So on the iPad becomes like a portfolio for me. And I can not only edit and cull my images, but I can show them off as well.
So when you're working in Lightroom, you take an image, you go to Photoshop Fix, do the changes you want, it can bounce right back to Lightroom.
Okay, yeah. So say we're in Lightroom Mobile. There are a couple of workflows that are deeply integrated with Fix. So for instance, if I'm over here in Lightroom Mobile, let's just take any old example here. Let's take this landscape. And let's say that I want to do some healing of this image. Let's say I want to sign in and then do some healing.
Hey, while he's doing that, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Q Charles, which I believe is Quentin Charles, says, can we get layers in Lightroom? No. Thank you for asking. Nah, I'm answering for him. I don't really know. Let's ask Bryan. Bryan, can we get layers in Lightroom?
Oh, boy. We're
Boy.
oh boy.
Boy.
Layers in Lightroom. This is what happens when I half listen to you while I'm logging in. Help me understand what we want from layers in Lightroom.
You want what they do in Photoshop Mix.
Okay.
Be able to composite and stuff
I
like
see.
that.
I see. Well, can you get that? Yeah, that'll be there tomorrow.
So, guys, I want you to think about this. There is actually an extension. I think you hear Adobe talk about extending the power of Lightroom. And so you have Lightroom Mobile. That's extended it the first step. The fact that you can now have a free app, it's completely free, that you can go, he's going to show you, it's integrated into Lightroom. Lightroom Mobile, you can go directly to Photoshop Fix, make retouching stuff. And by the way, he showed you this much of what it'll do. Go over there, retouching, it comes right back to Lightroom Mobile. Or want a composite? Do you want layers? Do you need layers? Go over to Photoshop Mix. Go over and do compositing, do things with layers, and have it come back. There are these round-trip workflows. It's free. It's all part of this system.
Yeah, on the one hand, I think that it does pay an application a real compliment when you say, can I have that thing over here? Part of the idea with atomizing these workflows and saying, let's have an app for retouching, let's have an app for compositing, is so that we don't have the sort of complexity that we have on the desktop. And I have a tremendous amount of affection for Photoshop. Obviously, I've spent 15 years of my career on that application, but it has grown incredibly complex, and people have a lot less patience on mobile devices. And so the workflow that we've used is having task-based tools to solve problems, because I think that more than anything, people value time when it comes to mobile devices, right? They want results quickly. And we can give you a lot of features, but we can't give it to you quickly. It won't be as performant in terms of the software or in terms of you navigating the software. So we've really gone for this sort of task-based approach to things. And Lightroom itself was sort of the original, right? If you think back to when Lightroom came out, about a decade ago, it was kind of a subtractive workflow from Photoshop. It was essentially camera raw with a different take on a file management, right? On Bridge. I know how much you love Bridge.
I love it.
Start that.
There's a reason why it's free. Wink.
Wow.
Okay, sorry.
I just dove right into that one. I steered myself.
You walked right into it.
I knew it was coming. I love Bridge. For all of you who I love both Lightroom and Bridge. You can love them both.
No, you can't.
Some of us can.
It's A or B.
Some of us can. But that was sort of the original subtractive software. That was the original task-based.
It was subtractive in that it sucked the life out of you. That's how it was subtractive.
Lightroom, not Bridge.
Oh no, Bridge sucked it out of you. Lightroom added it back in. When you were suicidal from using Bridge, that's when they realized that a certain number of people were killing themselves using Bridge, and that's why they created Lightroom. True. Proven fact. It's in Forbes.
So here we are back in Lightroom Mobile, and you'll notice that when I chose to edit in, because I have Fix installed, it says, hey, I see you have Fix. Do you want to just pop over and heal, or pop over and liquefy? And so what I can do is I can just jump over, and I could be removing trash or seaweed or whatever from the beach, and then just touch to save and return to Lightroom. And so my file, you see that I've got a dupe file that sits right next to the original with the trash missing from it.
Right. So to answer that question, did you see how seamless that was and how fast it happened? So what's the difference if you click and a filter interface pulls up, or you click and an app pulls up? It's the same thing. It's a very nicely integrated round-trip thing. Lots more questions. I'm going to run some of these by you before we go any deeper. Dan W99 asks, I have a desktop, laptop, iPhone, and iPad. Will we be able to have Lightroom Mobile sync to both the desktop and the laptop?
Yeah. So any of the files that you sync from Lightroom on the desktop or Lightroom on mobile are available anywhere else you've logged in to Lightroom. So if I'm on the web, and I can show that if you like in a minute, I just go to adobe.com, I sign in, all of the synced files are available right there, which means I don't even have to have my computer with me. I could come out here to Florida, I could leave my computer at home, and I could get to my Lightroom files wherever I am because I can get to them via the web. I can also get to them on my phone, I can get to them on my iPad. All of those synced files, they live in the cloud. I know I'm supposed to look up when I say that, and that's where they are.
Now, I have Lightroom on my desktop. I have Lightroom mobile on my iPad, on my phone. It's also on the web, and it's on my machine at home. When you have Lightroom mobile as the heart of all this, it's everywhere. So the question that you're asking, will be able to have that? Yes, and changes I make on any one of those devices will sync back to my desktop. So the workflow that you're asking, will we have that? We have that now.
Yeah.
But it all starts with having an Adobe account. By the way, you can get an Adobe account for absolutely free. You just go up there and sign up. It's like getting an Apple account. You just go and sign up for it. You get it for free. If you are a Photographer's Bundle subscriber, you already have an Adobe account. If you have the full Creative Cloud, you already have the Adobe account. If you don't, go make one and start integrating all this, because that's what I didn't know today was that Lightroom Mobile gave me access through all these other apps.
Right.
That's the thing I didn't realize today, and I'd never seen the Creative Cloud app before.
Right. In so many ways, it's the backbone of all this stuff we're doing. You know, for photographers out there, you may have seen that we came out with Adobe Portfolio recently. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or you're up on the change here, but it's the Behance team. They used to have Behance Pro Site. There's a couple differences with Portfolio. It's available to Creative Cloud Photography Plan members. It's available to
I created my first one last week.
Okay. What's so great about it is it's integrated with Lightroom, right? So I could do it from the web. If I have my stuff synced via Lightroom, then it's just available to me there. I can make that website anywhere I am. I could be out here working on my website wherever I am. So
there you go.
Yeah, your Lightroom files are, as long as you sync them, and obviously anything you create on mobile is automatically synced back down, but anything you sync from the desktop is available to you wherever you are.
There you go. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we got a lot more questions. And the person who asked this question, AirPhoto1, it says, can a Lightroom slideshow installed in that program? Can you rephrase that in the form of a sentence? Stick around. We'll be right back here live on The Grid. Don't go away. Can a Lightroom slide?
You want to take your design skills to the next level. You want to learn how to build a winning portfolio. You want hands-on training with live models. You want to mingle with the top professionals of photography and design. You want 3 days of Las Vegas energy and excitement. That's why you're going to Photoshop World in Vegas.
Hi there, my name's Dave Black. I'd like to welcome you to this Light Painting Under the Stars. This will be light painting similar to what we did in an earlier one, but with a huge difference. We're going to be light painting under the stars and including massive star fields, hopefully the Milky Way. We're going to be talking about camera gear, all the settings that you'll need, all the kind of lamps and flashlights that you'll need to do this with. We've got a great class lined up for you here. Make sure you check it out on kelby1.com.
Hey guys, I'm Michael Corsentino. I am really excited about my brand new class on how to use the Canon 600EX RT and its companion trigger. This class is designed to get you up to speed using flashes, modifying your light, and molding and shaping your light with various accessories. We'll talk about radio versus optical, masters and slaves, groups, and high-speed sync. So I hope you come check out my brand new class only on kelby1.com.
Create your own space at squarespace.com.
Hey everybody, we are back. We are live on the grid here. Our guest is Bryan O'Neil Hughes, who is with Adobe Systems. He is a raconteur? No, he is a mobile. I know you have a fancy official title.
I do. The fancy official title is head of outreach. You guys can think of me as the former product manager for Photoshop and a longtime veteran of Adobe and a fierce user advocate. Yeah.
And we think of him now as the mobile apps love machine. We have a bunch of questions. Let's get through some of them. Algia10 asks, and this was referring to the guy or the person that asked earlier about can we sync everything from the clouds? She says, no, what he means is through our networks at home, not the cloud. Well, it wouldn't be called the Adobe Creative Cloud. It would be called the Adobe Network at your home. But how would you answer that?
Right. Yeah. I really want people to understand that what's happening in the cloud is it's not just a bunch of apps that can be installed from Creative Cloud, which that is true. You could do a Mac on one, Windows on another. You can do things that weren't possible before. You could have mixed languages. You could do that. That's not possible before. And of course, you can store files. But none of those things are really unique. Anyone could do those things. It's what we're doing with the files. It's the non-destructive syncing of files. It's the instructions moving with the files. I make it black and white here. I make it color here. I make it black and white here. Always in touch with each other. The cropping. In a minute, I could show something like Mix, where I build a powerful composite, and it gets translated into a PSD, where all of those pieces are the native language of Photoshop. That's all the cloud doing all that stuff. So it's really important that you understand that it's not just a container in the sky. This isn't your home network that's got a fancy name and a little icon on it. There's a lot of magic that's happening. There's a lot of, I like to say that, especially with these mobile apps and desktop apps, it's not just what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. And it's very, very different. And I would say just use Lightroom Mobile on 2 devices and you'll get it right away. And if we have time, I'll show Capture. And I think Capture is a fantastic example of the sort of magic that you can extract.
Capture was a big hit in the earlier one.
I think we should show it to these folks. I really do.
We will. Well, let me just get a couple of questions, and we can do just that. This is an intriguing question. North of the 49th Parallel asks, what is Adobe's philosophy of mobile? What belongs in mobile versus what will never go in your mobile app? So is there any kind of philosophy at Adobe?
Sure.
Like here's what makes sense going to mobile?
Yeah, I don't want you guys to think of it as an either here or there. That's not the way to look at it. I think for existing members, which I hope most of you are, I'm finding increasingly when I talk to people, they get it. They understand the Creative Cloud, and they understand that the Creative Cloud photography plan is like the best deal out there. I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I remember having long talks on the phone with you saying, how does this sound? How about this price? How about this? Are they going to like that? So I feel like people get it. For the existing subscribers, we need to show that they can access their files and they can be creative away from their desktop. No one ever said that your creativity has to be locked onto the desktop, that you have to be sitting down to be creative. That's kind of a crazy notion. When you go out and you shoot, yes, you can shoot in the studio, but you can also walk down the street and shoot. You should be able to have the same creative freedom. You should be able to have an editing experience in your pocket. You should be able to edit or cull your images from the cab. So think of it for the existing folks as getting to your stuff wherever you are, being able to look at your stuff wherever you are. The iPad Pro is a fantastic portfolio. Being able to edit your stuff wherever you are. Being able to do some unique and magical things on a device that has a different interaction method. Touch is very, very different. We can do things like what we did with Liquefy. And then there's a whole other group of people who have heard of our stuff and are terrified. For them, the idea of spending 3 or 4 days in Las Vegas to learn their way around it is really scary. And not everybody wants to do that.
Which is sad, because everyone should do that.
Or you should do that, just in general.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will see a lot of you in Vegas. But for those of you who don't want to do that, who just want to composite or retouch or do a really amazing drawing or something like Slate, that doesn't mean that you need to spend a ton of time getting your head around it. So what we've endeavored to do is to make these things easy enough for everyone, but powerful enough for professionals. So don't think of it as we're going to do one thing here and a different thing here, and we don't want to cannibalize this workflow. for all of you guys who are members, we want to keep giving you value on all your devices.
And I don't think that you've done that a lot because, like, Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Desktop share almost all the same features. There's nothing that's really unique to Lightroom Mobile.
No.
It's just how you do it, but it's the same things you do in desktop.
Yep.
Now, some of these other apps are just completely like, there are things that I could show you in Photoshop Fix that I'd say, I'd like it to go the other way. I'd like to take that and put it into Photoshop. So that's a very interesting and intriguing thing. But I don't think that, like, you've had any hesitance to add in mobile things that are also in the desktop. I think they complement each other.
Absolutely. And it's no accident. The teams that come up with these, let's just talk about the Photoshop team. I was the original product manager on Mix and on Fix. It was really important to me to do a 1.0. I'd been working on Photoshop forever, and I was excited to do my first 1.0 project. So I got to work on those. I didn't just work on those with some guy off the street. I worked on them with Jeff Chen. Jeff Chen has over 50 patents.
Jeff Chen is one of the most brilliant guys in the world.
Yeah,
I love
If you guys have ever used the healing brush and you enjoy that, that's Jeff Chen.
Jeff Chen is amazing.
And a lot of other amazing Photoshop team members and Lightroom team members. These guys aren't on separate teams. They're all together, and they're bringing what they learned in one place over to the other. So I don't blame you for thinking that they're different worlds, but it's really the same folks just putting magic on different devices.
All right, let's take two quick questions. Then can we look at what was it called? Adobe Capture.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very cool. This next program is just so cool. Doc Chevalier asks, he's requesting clarification. I have one catalog on a laptop and, it's the key word, a main catalog on the desktop, and I sync collections from the main catalog. Can I sign into mobile from the laptop and get those mobile images without having the same catalog on both machines? Brian?
Right now, you need to have one catalog.
Yeah, it's one catalog, period.
Yeah, we hear people ask about that. This is something I talked about a little bit earlier, and I want to talk about it for just a second. There was a time when Lightroom first started out when if people had a whole bunch of images, we would say, you might want to think about having multiple catalogs because things would degrade a little bit in terms of performance.
Would slow.
Right. And we completely rewrote Lightroom. We rewrote a lot of parts of it, going back to the questions about performance earlier, to make it faster, to put it on the GPU. And I know I have well in excess of 10,000 images in one catalog. I imagine you've got more than that.
Yes.
The days of needing to have multiple catalogs for a lot of images, it is not important to do that anymore. I understand, though, that there are people, maybe they're wedding photographers who shoot a tremendous volume, who, for logistical reasons, want to have multiple catalogs. But for most folks, having one catalog is not only the easiest way, it's the only way with certain workflows, and this is one of those.
I agree. If you can get away with using one catalog, your life gets so much better and so much easier and so much organized. It's awesome. The second question I wanted to ask is, this is from the Swede in Stockholm. Hi, when I travel light, I don't have my laptop with me. When are you going to support RAW files importing into the iPad?
That one comes up a lot as well. We did just bring RAW support to Lightroom on Android. Very exciting.
But that's not importing RAW files from your DSLR. That's
the ability to open the RAW. Yes.
So if you have an Android phone, this is the big if you have an Android phone that shoots RAW photos, you can import the photos you took with your Android phone. There's a lot of confusion about that because people think, I can shoot from my DSLR guy. No, not yet.
Absolutely.
But is this something you guys are working on?
Yeah. So
He said but then he went silent.
Let's talk about this one for a second. Here's what I'll say about this one. As I mentioned before, there are certain things that just come up a lot, and you say, oh, well, that's something people care about. We need to work on that. I know, when John was at the company, blogged a lot. In the very earliest days of Lightroom, he blogged about that. Of the iPad, he blogged about that. It's something that we understand people want to do. There are definitely some limitations with the device, obviously in terms of storage.
In terms of storage, I think people forget about the storage issue and the speed of transfer issue.
Right. But I will say that since the iPad Pro has come out, and I've been really close to that. I got to use this pre-release when we rolled stuff out at Max. I've been working very closely with Apple. Ever since this device came out, and I think it's because it's such a high resolution display. It's the highest resolution portable display they make. And it really is a very powerful device. People are expecting more and more from the mobile apps. And we take that very, very seriously. So we are absolutely listening to folks. We get that that's a workflow that they're interested in. When we change something that's that significant, we really want to do it right. So I just want people to know that we listen, we respond, and something of that magnitude, it's not trivial, but we get that you want that, and we're paying very close attention to the feedback that people give us. I want to just say something that backs that up that I mentioned to Scott before. If you look at Adobe's new mobile apps in the iTunes store, you'll see that they're all ranked on average about 4.75 stars. And that's a real feat in the iTunes store.
That's insanity.
It's not easy to do, and we didn't start off there. It takes time to get there. But the reason I mention it to all of you is that it's the feedback from users like yourselves that tell us what we need to do, and we then iterate and rev the apps, and the rankings come up. So we take that stuff really, really seriously, and I think you'll see that reflected not just in the feature set, which is important, but in the quality of the apps as well, the stability, the performance, and the features. So,
yeah, I was looking, Brian, for a folder full of images, like a folder full of raw images, so I found this one, and it's 5.3 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And it's not many images. Let me see how many images it is total. Unfortunately they're in separate folders. We're going to say it's about 25 a piece. So let me see what I've got here. 25, 100. I have 225 images, and it's about close to 6 gig. I cannot possibly fit that on my iPad. There's absolutely no way.
It's physically impossible.
It's physically impossible. I have a 64 gig iPad. But the problem is I've got a bunch of apps on there. I have a bunch of pictures on there. I have a bunch of videos on there. And I probably have a movie or two that I've downloaded from the iTunes store. I couldn't fit 3 gigabyte on there. So I think that while there might be, I think you'd have to take a raw image over like one at a time. I don't see a workflow where you're plugging in your card and you're dumping a 64 gig card on there.
Yeah.
I don't see that until these devices get a lot more storage. Now, I know you could buy 128. I don't know many people that have 128. Do you have 128?
I've got 128. But
Thanks for playing.
I agree with you guys, and I want the same thing. I mean, this came up earlier with the
If I
adjustment
worked
brush.
for Adobe, I'd have a 128.
I'm gonna get ahead of this one.
64.
Someone asked for the adjustment brush in Lightroom Mobile before, and I was really upfront about it. I said, I want it too. I absolutely
Me too.
want it too.
I want it.
And I also want a raw workflow on my iPad. That
I
would
want
be
a
wonderful.
128 gig iPad is all I want. All right. Here we go. So Air Photo One. Remember, I asked them if they would mention anything. Scott, I came in late. It's the program. I missed the name that you had your football story on. So in Slate, can you bring in a Lightroom slideshow into that program?
No, you can target collections and
yeah, you can bring in images from Lightroom.
Yeah, you can bring in images from Lightroom, and it respects all the collections that you have on the desktop. So your whole organization is respected when you bring stuff in, and you can certainly multi-select and bring in gangs of images. But there's not like a direct integration with a Lightroom desktop slideshow.
No, but what you could do is this, because we remember what Slate is. Slate is a photography storytelling. So it's not just a slideshow. You have that in Lightroom Mobile anyway. You've got that in a lot of places, right? But what you can do is go to Slate, access your Lightroom Mobile, bring in the collection full of images you want, and then type in your words, and then it's done because it already has the animation built into the template. Right. So what you're asking to do, if that's what you're asking to do, and I'm not 1,000%, but it will not take a slideshow that you built in Lightroom and just put it there. Because I would say, why would you need it there? If you have a slideshow in Lightroom, show it in Lightroom. But if you wanted it to be on the web for other people to see and stuff, you can go right from Slate, straight to your Lightroom Mobile, bring in your images and write your story. That you can do all seamlessly.
I see a question about calibration and that, and this isn't a direct response to that question, but it's something that I hear a lot. I think a lot of people are somewhat skeptical about editing on mobile devices because they figure that they're not as color accurate as their display on their desktop. And I'll admit, I was one of those people myself. I thought, the iPad's really cool, but is it, what profile is it? Is it accurate? Let me tell you guys, working with the iPad Pro, and I'm sure this is the same of other iPads, but working with the iPad Pro especially, and seeing a lot of them together, when they ship these things, they calibrate them, not just like they calibrate desktops where they'll take a couple of samples. They do it by column and by row, and it's all done obsessively, which is to say that if you were to take 100 iPad Pros and put them in a
color
row,
looks consistent.
It looks perfectly consistent.
Same thing with like the iPad Air. When I see like my own images or somebody, we're all looking, like we're all sitting at Starbucks, which we often do. We all take our iPads, go to Starbucks and show each other pictures. But if we did, no, but I'm in situations where everybody has like an iPad, the color is so consistent. But here's the weird thing. So let's say that you were able to calibrate that and you get it, you do your own calibration, it looks perfect to you. It will look different on every other monitor in the world. So at least if you do it on an iPad, when you edit, it'll look the same on every other iPad. iPad mini, iPad Air, iPad whatever. The color, if it's off, it's got to be off by 1% or 2% because it looks identical. But once you go to the internet, you have no idea. So calibration really, in real life, can we just be honest about it? Calibration exists for you to get matching color out of your printer. Go to Best Buy and walk to the computer section and watch all the things running just like the animated Best Buy logo. It's different on every display. They're going, this one's from HP and this one's from who knows who and this one's from Mac, and they're all different. They're all, walk to the TV section, it's even a wider range. You have no idea what someone's gonna look at your images. They look different on every single, you gotta go to Best Buy to really experience it, and you'll just stand in the computer section, look at all these laptops and go, oh no.
Yeah.
But on these mobile devices, it is much more, especially Apple's, they're consistent.
Very consistent, very consistent. And if you think about where a lot of the content is consumed, it's consistent on the other devices that people are consuming it on. So in a lot of ways, it makes sense to preview stuff on a mobile device because there's a pretty good chance that's where your client or someone is going to be looking at it, right?
All right. Presets in Lightroom Mobile on iPad. Or to be able to use desktop presets.
Yeah.
So there already are presets, but I guess they want to be able to download presets and make a move over.
Yeah, this is something I mentioned with you earlier, where when we first started off with mobile, and I want to show you guys some of this stuff, a little outside of Lightroom and whatnot, but we thought about it in terms of either mobile to mobile or mobile to desktop. And I think it's a sign that people are really putting some weight behind mobile, that they're now asking for desktop on mobile. They want desktop brushes on mobile. They want desktop presets on mobile. They want to be able to do things. They want like InDesign templates on mobile. And even though we can't satisfy all of those requests yet, I think it's a great sign because it shows that it's a two-way street. That people are editing in both places and they're consuming in both places,
and they want to move
between them. And
that's can you show
our
Capture
theory.
This? It does such.
Absolutely.
You got to see this. This does such a wonderful job of showing what can be done.
So, at the risk of looking like my parents at the Grand Canyon or something, I'm going to use the Capture on the iPad. I don't normally take pictures with a view camera, but we'll do it. We'll do it here. So this is a free app. It's called Capture CC. And this used to be 4 apps, or it used to be multiple apps. It used to be color, shape. The way that this works is that I can create content just by pointing the camera at something. So I'm going to hit the plus key here, and you're going to see my very monochromatic desktop here. I'll point it over at Scott.
Oh, not me again.
Color, right? There we go. So I've made my Scott Kelby color theme. And what we've done is we've harmonized these colors, and I choose which library I want to put it in. I've created one here, and I'm going to say Save. Now, here's where it gets a little more interesting. If I take that color combination, and I say, let's edit that, you'll see that we have access to the individual RGB, even CMYK, lab, and HSB values. It harmonized the colors, it gave me complementary colors, but I can then monkey with all of the results. And what's cool is anything that I shoot with this will then be saved back in the library on the desktop. So these colors are going to be available in the other mobile apps, but they're also going to be available in the desktop app as well.
So
It's
they're
just
in
gonna
your
be sitting there.
Photoshop library now.
In just a second, we'll look at it on the desktop, and it's just going to be sitting there. Now, if I move into shapes, and I hit plus, and I'm going to point this at my phone. This is all very, very meta. iPad on iPhone, and I tap the screen. That's the one thing you guys are going to want to do. And then I scroll up with a little slider, capture that, and I'm going to just scrub my finger to say, I don't want any of this other content. I just want that little logo. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to click next, and what it's going to do is it's going to create, I left some extra stuff in there, a scalable vector object of that. So this is a perfect vector. I could blow it up
Yeah,
the
this
size.
is like you drew it with the pen tool.
That's right. That's right. It will also be saved in that library. It will also be called whatever I want to call it. And just to be ridiculous, I'll show that you can do crazy things like create brushes. And I'll just show one of the ones that I made. Here's one where I made a comb into a brush, right? I took a picture of a comb, and now it's a brush. That brush sits in Photoshop on the desktop. So let me move over really quickly to my screen for my desktop. There's my email address if anyone would like that. I know you have lots of questions. Those of you who are either not asking them or not getting answers, you really can write me. But the other thing I want to show you, bhughes@adobe.com, is that if I create a new document and we look over here in my library panel in Photoshop, all that stuff that we just shot is just sitting here. Those exact color values are right here.
Those are my color values, Brian.
You are right here. Those brushes, our little logo we just captured, that's right there. It's just sitting there waiting for me whenever I launch the app. All that content is right there. So it's not just available from mobile to mobile. It's not just available on the web. It's just waiting on the desktop.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You have a comb brush. Let's see. Photomo 50 asks a question you can't answer. I'd like the ability to keyword photos in Lightroom. Any hints that's coming soon?
Yeah, I think the organizational abilities of Lightroom are really important on mobile because a lot of people, I sound like a politician.
That was a good answer.
Because a lot of people are culling their images wherever they go. So we've added to that. You can flag, you can star rank. We don't have parity between the two, but we hear you and we're working on it. Yeah.
That was good. That was an answer without an answer. I like it. Well, I mean, it's what we
I've
said.
been watching the primaries. And
Yeah, you've got that down.
no, it's the truth, though. We are listening to you, and we are. If you just look at any of these mobile apps and read back through the updates to the apps, you will see just lists and lists of changes, and they're all things that people asked for that we responded to.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, I didn't mention this, but we always give away stuff on the grid. We're going to give away some stuff today. We're going to give away a little bit later. Ooh, not much later. Holy cow. We're going to give away the Lightroom CC book for digital photographers, which, by the way, has an entire chapter on Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom Mobile, and my book, How Do I Do That in Lightroom, which is for people who've been already familiar with Lightroom. You kind of know it, but you're just looking to do some individual thing, and you just want to go to it and learn how to do it. And it has a whole thing on Lightroom Mobile. Both of them have mobile chapters, giving these away to some lucky or unlucky person today. Now, questions. Does Lightroom Mobile do books?
Does Lightroom Mobile do books? No. Lightroom on the desktop, as we know, has a really nice book module,
Yes, it
but
does.
there's not a direct integration with Lightroom Mobile. I will say this is an interesting option, and I don't know of a third-party partner, but there's another thing that we make called the Creative SDK. And the whole idea with the Creative SDK is that we can take pieces of our mobile apps and share them with third parties. It's a free software development kit available to third parties, and there are thousands of developers who have used it. If you look a couple years ago, we acquired Aviary. That's what they were all about.
By the, that is the app my wife uses for editing her
I
iPhone photos.
understand.
She
She
uses
loves it.
Aviary and loves it. And she's looked at a lot of apps, and that's where she's probably landed. I think that's where, that's her app.
So that's Aviary's whole strength, is that engine in there is available to third parties. So they can put that stuff
Like
that
the
she
same
loves.
technology and pop it over.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
One of the things that we can put is the support for Lightroom. So if there is a book publisher that wants to tie into that, if there are any book publishers watching, they can do that for free. They can give you access to your Lightroom libraries. So we're not going to build all the apps in the world, but we want to create the tools so other people can.
Beep, beep, beep.
You have an app too, right?
So you can give access, so you can let other developers have access to the Lightroom library?
Lightroom, Creative Cloud, the desktop. Yeah, whether it's the desktop integration or opening from Creative Cloud or Lightroom, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
No.
Does anybody do that?
A whole lot of people, yeah. But we're really just gearing up on that one. We're just getting started.
All right. So let's see. This is a tricky one here. So Bryan, it's either Bryan Essler photo or Bryan Essler photo. It's Bryan Essler, sorry. It says, Bryan, he sent you an email after the member talk earlier, but thought that maybe this could be applied. So it looks like he's, any tricks for optimizing catalogs for people using an iMac with a new 5K? Previews are the slowest thing. They aren't too bad, but I keep reading articles that contradict themselves in terms of how to boost performance.
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of this until recently, but apparently there's some known cases of performance degradation on 5K IMAX because it's such an
crazy
enormous
resolution.
Yeah, I mean the preview is better than the quality of some finished output on some machines.
Wow.
So we're looking at. I can tell you honestly, there are multiple threads right now of people looking at this and figuring out what's going on, and we have a very close relationship with Apple. So I'm not sure exactly what the cause of it is, other than enormous images, but we are working on it. Yeah, and we use those machines to demo on, so that's something we obviously care a lot about. We've got an event coming up where we're using 5K IMAX.
Wow. So can we see a couple? We don't have much time because we're actually over time. But can we see a few more apps? Can you kind of just give us a taste? Because I really think that, and this is why we did that webcast for the Kelby One members earlier. I don't think people realize the power and the things that are out there. We've looked at the tiny tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite mobile apps?
I agree. Well, let's keep it to imaging for right now, just given this crowd. And so what I want to do is I want to talk really quickly about Photoshop Mix, and not for creating a composite, although you can create a composite like what you see here. But I want to show the example that I showed you earlier of the multiple exposure effect, because for me, that was something that I wanted to do in Photoshop, and I can do it in Photoshop. It takes me about 7 minutes. Turns out I can do it in about 40 seconds in Mix. So I want to show that workflow here in Mix.
Oh, yeah, please.
So the idea in Mix, one of the first things that you'll notice is that anything I've been working on here is a project. And that means it's in the state that I left it. So if I began this on my phone, it means that the background is a separate image. These are layers. I can add several layers. I can use blend modes. And it's all editable no matter where I created it. I can get to it on the web. I can get to it on my phone. But what I want to show you guys how to do really quickly, and I'm going to go a little slower than I normally would on this because I hope that you'll pull down Mix and you'll try this yourself, is how to create a multiple exposure look like the one you see of this image here of my wife. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out those two to show you where it started. I used Apple Pencil to isolate the image of her that you see on screen here. And what I want to do is I want to blend the images. So all I did is I went into Cutout, and I used Pencil, and I selected all around her, and it's just like using Quick Select in Photoshop. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to use the little plus icon on the far right to add another layer, although you'll see we're not using terms like layers. We're trying not to scare people with the terminology. And I'm just going to grab this image of the trains. I should note that we support very large images here. No problem opening 20, 30 megapixels. Not a problem at all. In fact, Fix on the iPad Pro could even open a 50 megapixel image. And then what I'm going to do with that image there, I'm going to take the image of her that's selected on the bottom there, and I'm just going to drag it up onto that other one and say copy that mask on there. And what I've done is I've trimmed the mask to the other image. And now I'm going to go into blend, and I've got all of these blend modes that I know on the desktop, like soft light. I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to apply a third layer, again, by hitting the plus on the right-hand side. And in this case, I'm going to add a texture. But I want that texture to be monochromatic, so I'm going to go into saturation. And I should note, for all of you Lightroom fans out there, this is Camera Raw or the Develop module under the hood here. All of these commands here are the same that you find in Camera Raw or Lightroom's Develop module. And so if I apply that and then apply a blend mode to it, maybe multiply and commit that, we've come up with that nice look. And now if I send that over to Photoshop, what's going to happen is the cloud is going to turn that into a PSD. This is a great example of it not just storing the image, it's actually going to translate that into a PSD. And I've already got one over there. This is a big image. Oh, there it goes. But what it'll do is it'll put it in the cloud, and then it will launch Photoshop. I think I already opened one over here. Let me see if I have it here. Here's one that I opened earlier. And you see that on the desktop, we've got that image here. We've got the mask.
Yeah, everything's still there.
Everything's right there. And in fact, it's a 38.7 meg file. It's a full resolution file. So really, really nice integration with Photoshop. If you'll notice on the top there, there's a file syncing. And what that tells me is the file I sent up there is being translated in the cloud right now. And when it's ready, it'll be deployed here locally. So it would launch Photoshop and open that file up. So you've got this really nice integration with a tonal adjustment, like on the other image that I made before, like with the foreground here. If I were to double-click that, it would take me into Camera Raw, because when I made this image earlier, I made a tonal adjustment in Mix. That tonal adjustment was respected as a smart object over in Photoshop. So when I say that they're integrated, they are really, really deeply integrated. Yeah,
they're tight. All right. So what other apps can we look at? Quickly?
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Comp real quick. And the reason I want to look at Comp is because when I first saw this app, I thought, you know what? I'm not an InDesign user. I don't have any need of this app. I'm a photographer. And the promise with Comp is that it would be a digital napkin. It would be a way to rough out designs and layouts on a touch device. And so, again, not being an InDesign user, I thought, well, that's not really something that I need. But what I found myself doing was using the iPad Pro as a portfolio. And in a second, I'll show that because I actually think there's something really cool people should see. But let's look at Comp. And Comp's a fun one because this is something where we worked with some really amazing designers. In fact, one of the designers we worked with is this gentleman named Coy. He's a blogger, he's a designer, he's a good guy. He was a critic of Adobe's, of a lot of what we were doing. And we said, you know what, we're gonna do a mobile app for designers, and we could really use your attention to detail. He consulted with us, he helped us come up with this app, and we had such a great experience with him that he actually ended up joining Adobe at the end of the project, which was really wonderful. It's a great addition to the family. You'll notice in Comp, I've got projects that are here. You'll see some of the ones I've worked on in the past, and you can see that people are able to create some serious work here. It was intended to be a companion to InDesign and to allow you to rough stuff out and essentially have a digital napkin. But there are people who are creating finished work in here. Let me show you how it works. It's kind of unique. We hit the plus icon. We choose the orientation that we want. I'm going to go with iPad Pro. And even though I could drop in shapes, you'll notice that I could drop in any of those shapes we just created. I could drop in colors. I also have a gesture library here. The way that the gestures work is I just scribble on screen and it turns those gestures into objects. So let's say I want to make this a cover for my portfolio. I'm just going to drag my finger to make a rectangle. If I wanted to step back, were I to do that rectangle with a dot, it's going to then place lorem ipsum text right there. If I wanted a container for an image under that, I'm going to drag an X through there, and we could just
that's amazing.
Come in here, and
every time I see it, I'm like, that's just cool.
We'll just choose any old image here. Let's take another one of these. So let's do this car shot. You'll notice that the images can all be moved around. I get guides. I can crop them. I can drop in text simply by drawing lines and a dot, and I'm going to get lorem ipsum text there. And what's cool about this, so let's call this portfolio, is that I don't just have system fonts here. I actually, because of Typekit, I have access to hundreds, in fact, over 1,000 unique fonts. We acquired this company a couple of years back, and it gave us access to some beautiful fonts. So I'll just pick one that I don't think I've already added. Let's go with Macho here. Pull that one down.
Come on, tell me you didn't have that font.
Easy to remember.
Macho.
So we'll drop in that right there. It's Macho Extra Light, which sounds sort of like a contradiction. And it's applied that font there. And what's cool is if I send that over to InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator, it will actually fetch that font on its way over if the font doesn't exist on the desktop. It'll say, oh, you're a font I don't recognize, but you live on the web in the form of a Typekit font, so I'm going to pull that down. And of course, the photos, the guides, the spacing, they're all preserved. If you're working with someone who doesn't have our software, you can send them a PDF, and it'll resolve a full resolution PDF, and you could send that to someone as well. So it really, the iPad becomes a digital napkin.
That is very cool. And you know, that was one of the things that I love the way you scribble with your hand and it goes, oh, this is a square, this is a photo. And like, I would use this for laying out ads. Like you want to lay out an ad or a banner ad or something like that. Headline goes here, graphic here, 2 columns of text. How do you do 2 columns? Is there a 2 columns?
Yeah, you can have multiple columns. You'll get guides and grids for each. You can also do cool things like say you have a shape or something that you like. Like say I have a circle. Right? Say I want to have multiple ones. I could do a circle and then a plus, and it's going to give me 2.
Oh, look at that.
You can link objects. You can align them. It really is like a touch-driven InDesign. It's pretty cool. While we're on the iPad, because this is how I started talking about this, I want to show you guys Creative Cloud because this is an important one. This is how you're going to see all of your PSDs, TIFFs, movie files, everything you're not used to being able to preview on a mobile device. I could come in here. I worked on the cover article for this month's Photoshop user, showing what you can do with some of this stuff. And if you look in here, you'll see there's a movie file, there's a TIFF, there's a PSD, there's a JPEG. There's all of these different files sitting next to each other. If I come back here to my race shots, as you know, car guy, if we come through here, it's just a really nice portfolio. Again, it's a really high-resolution display for looking at this stuff.
Beautiful.
So for some folks, I think that the role of mobile is access, and for others, I think it's editing.
Very nice. Hey, so number one, can we share your email address again?
Yeah.
Because Bryan makes his email address available, and if you have questions, comments, feedback, need a loan, looking for a job, any of that kind of stuff.
Want a pen pal?
Pen pal, if you're just lonely, bhughes@adobe.com.
And I really do encourage you to share your feedback, whether it's on the mobile apps or if it's questions about things. As Scott can tell you, as some of you who are watching know, this is what was behind a lot of the JDI stuff that we did with Photoshop, and it's a big part of us making the software that you enjoy is hearing your honest feedback. So I encourage you to be critical. I encourage you to tell us what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. We love hearing from you.
One thing we didn't really get to talk about today, and I will just talk about it briefly because we're out of time, was one of the things that has happened to these mobile apps is how quickly they're being updated. We got to show a little bit of Adobe Capture. There's a lot more to that program than we showed, a lot more. But that used to be 4 different programs, right? It was 4 different individual.
Multiple apps, and the feedback was just make it one, just make it one, just make it one. And we heard that enough times, and we're like, I think they want us to just make it one. And so that ended up being one app. That's happened with a few different things. There have been cases where functionality in one app becomes part of another app. We used to have an app called Line, and the functionality in Line became part of Draw. So sometimes the answer is having more apps and atomizing these workflows so that they're task-based and fast, and sometimes it makes sense to roll them together as well. I think that as we break Photoshop into pieces, it's going to have to be multiple apps, just because after a quarter century, there's a lot to Photoshop, and there's a lot that doesn't necessarily make sense on mobile.
Yep. All right, Bryan, thank you. I'm going to go, we're going to do drawings for these two books. Where do you go to enter the contest to win one of these two fine books? You're going to go to kelby1.com/webcast-contest. So webcast-contest. You're going to say you're watching the grid. You're going to give us your name and your contact info. Under comments, tell us which book you want to win. How Do I Do That? Or the Lightroom CC book for digital. They're both Lightroom books, but one's called How Do I Do That in Lightroom. One's called the Lightroom CC book. The Lightroom CC book starts you at square one. So if you're new to Lightroom, you ask for that one. If you're more experienced, to get How Do I Do That in Lightroom. It sounds like it wouldn't be for more experience, but it actually is. All right. So we've got your email. We know where they can get in touch with you. Where can they find out? Like, where's the master collection of Adobe apps?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to pop over to my web browser here, and this is a bit of a long URL. You could also find it just by looking up Creative Cloud mobile apps, but adobe.com/creativecloud/catalog/mobile. Again, just Google Creative Cloud mobile apps. And this is a useful page because it's going to show you not only each app, but it's going to show you what its companion is. They, of course, all are free. They all work on their own, but they're deeply integrated with these various desktop apps. And if I click on one of them, let's say I come down here and I click on Photoshop Mix. Well, when I do that, I'm going to see the link to the App Store and the link to the Google Store. Again, these run on across the board on both the phone and the iPad, and we're steadily moving to Android as well. So that's sort of the master page for that. The other thing that I would show you guys just really quickly is if I'm logged in to adobe.com, let's just look at this experience. This is really important. Here I am, I'm logged into adobe.com, and I come in here to my files. Not only can I get to my Creative Cloud files and my Lightroom photos, but if you guys don't know this or don't play around with it, in addition to getting to those Lightroom photos, you can also edit them as well. So any of the things that we just did, any of those collections, those are all sitting right in here. So they're all up to date. Anything that I did, that image that we retouched and fixed before is, of course, sitting there just as we left it. So this is that whole integration thing that I was talking about. If anyone's interested in the Creative SDK, which we talked about, there's a whole page on that as well.
All right. Last question. Johan said, I missed the beginning question, Scott. What are the apps you use the most? I use Lightroom Mobile, of course, the most. I love Lightroom Mobile. I'm a big fan. And I've been trying a lot to get people using Lightroom Mobile. It's been kind of my thing. I have a class on Kelby 1, all on Lightroom Mobile. I'm teaching Lightroom Mobile at Photoshop World. So there's, that app. And today, I think I'm going to use it even more because today was the day, earlier in the day today, when I realized all of these, how closely all these apps are integrated. If you have Lightroom Mobile and you're using it, all your images are there for all these other apps, and we only touched the surface. We never even got to Adobe Post. That's one of my other favorite ones. The person asked that question. Adobe Post I like Adobe Slate, the photo storytelling one. So there's a number of apps that are just amazing, and the one that I really think I need to get is one we just showed earlier, the comping one, Adobe Comp.
Yep. I'll tell you guys what, I took the time to record some short videos, just walking through really quickly sort of what these are and how they work. I can share them with you, but if any of you reach out and want more information on those, I'm happy to share them with you as well. Why don't I pass those links to you? And
hey, why don't I make that my blog post for Friday?
Great.
If I can just show the videos, I'll just embed them. Are they
that would be fantastic.
Embeddable?
Yep.
So I'll embed them. That'll be my blog post on Friday. So go to scottkelby.com on Friday. That's 2 days from now. Hey, I'm on my way to London Friday.
Fun.
Swing in London. Speaking of London, look at the second I say it, Dave Clayton from the UK pops in there. When can we add additional storage to CC? Dave, if you're short on storage, I'll bring you some. I'm going to see Dave on Sunday, I think.
Fun.
Dave, I can't tell you how much fun we're going to have without you in London, because I'm hanging out with Dave and Peter, the hybrid boys, and we're going to do so much fun stuff. And Peter got me a shoot, too. I got a really cool shoot. I can't tell you what it is. It's secret. But Sunday in London, I'm shooting with a camera, Anyway, but I'm going to London for the photography show. Is next week, and it is an amazing show. Everybody last year was raving about it, and I felt like I'm left out, and they invited me to come. So yay, I will be speaking on the super stage on Monday and Tuesday of next week. I'll be on the super stage at the photography show, so I hope to see you there, and come by and check it out and feel the love. What else? Is there anything else? Yes, go to photoshopworld.com. Photoshop World registration is open. Who's speaking there? Bryan. Are we going to be doing mobile stuff there? Oh, yeah. We got so much. We have so much new stuff this year at Photoshop World. Stuff we've never done. We are adding so many cool things that we're actually going to do a webcast just on what's new. It is amazing. There it is. There's the website, photoshopworld.com. It's up and live and running, and we'd love to see you there. And if you register now, you'll save money. You'll get it cheaper than it. Look, it's 124 days away. 124 days away, yeah. So thanks for everybody for watching. Bryan, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
You very much.
Always
Appreciate
fun.
it. And thanks to Adobe for letting us borrow you for a couple of days here. And we will catch you guys. Wait, I won't be here next week. I'll be flying home from London. Steve will be here. Steve will be on the show next week talking about something, but we look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks, Bryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone. Take care.
Steve, I'll be there. I'll do it.